The sky was red, burning with fire and smoke. Earth was dying. Cities had fallen one by one. The alien alliance called it Operation Peace, but there was no peace, only destruction. Giant alien ships hovered in the sky, their weapons firing down on anything that moved. Streets were empty, buildings broken, and the air filled with the cries of the last survivors. The war had lasted for years, and now it was over. Humanity had lost. Alien leaders stood in their great halls, watching the final images of Earth on their glowing screens. They cheered and raised their glasses. For them, this was a victory, a moment of pride. "The human threat is no more," said the High Commander of the Varnic Empire. "They were too dangerous, too wild. The galaxy is safe now." Others nodded and smiled. They had feared humans, feared their fire, their anger, their refusal to kneel. But now, the fire was out. Or so they thought. Far above the burning Earth, hidden behind a dead moon, a ship floated in silence. It was dark, cold, and quiet, but not empty. Inside, a single man sat in the command chair. His name was Commander Reyes. He stared at the screen in front of him, watching Earth's fall. His face showed no fear, no sadness, just silence. Around him, the ship slowly came to life. Lights flickered on, systems activated. A red line of text appeared across the screen. "Protocol Phoenix ready." Reyes stood up. His uniform was old and worn, but his eyes were sharp. He walked to the center of the ship where a group of people stood waiting, men and women, soldiers and scientists. Some were injured, some had lost everything, but all of them had survived, and now they were ready. Reyes looked at them and said just 4 words. "The war is ours." The ship began to move. It turned away from Earth and vanished into the shadows of space. It wasn't the only one. Across the stars, other ships, hidden, silent, forgotten, woke. They had been built in secret, hidden deep in asteroids, moons, and old wrecks. Humanity had known it might lose, so they had planned for it. If Earth fell, a second plan would begin. A plan built not for defense, but for revenge. Meanwhile, in the alien military academy on the planet Tharun, young cadets were being trained in how to fight the lesser species. Among them was a bright student named Vael. He had sharp blue skin and curious yellow eyes. He had always wanted to see Earth, to study the humans for himself. But now, Earth was gone. His teachers told him it was a good thing. "Humanity was dangerous," said one. "They refused to follow the rules. They fought like beasts. Their fall is a gift to the galaxy." But something about that didn't sit right with Vael. That night, he snuck into the restricted data archives and played old war footage, battles between humans and aliens. He watched humans fight even when outnumbered. He saw them protect each other, even in defeat. He saw the fire in their eyes. It didn't look like madness, it looked like something else, something stronger than fear. Back on the hidden ship, Reyes sat in his private room, looking at a small photo, an old picture of his family. They had died in the first wave of attacks. He had sworn then that he would never stop. He had warned Earth's leaders that the alliance was lying, that peace talks were just a trick. No one listened. Now it was too late. Or maybe not. In deep space, a coded signal was sent. It traveled quietly through the black void, reaching satellites, old machines, and secret bases. Across the stars, hidden human AI systems turned on. Old messages were unlocked. One word repeated again and again: awaken. On a mining station near the edge of alien space, a Varnak patrol picked up a strange signal. They ignored it at first, but then their systems began to fail. Lights went out, engines stopped, and just before everything shut down, the last thing the captain saw on his screen was a message written in red: "We are not finished." The galaxy thought the war had ended. They thought the last human had died with Earth. But in the silence, in the dark, something had survived. Not just people, but purpose. Humanity had been broken, yes, but not destroyed. The fall of Earth was not the end. It was the beginning, and the real war was just starting. The alien patrol cruisers glided through the silent stretch of space. Beyond the Korath Nebula, At first, everything seemed normal. Stars winked like distant candles, and the soft hum of engines filled the bridge. But then the first ship stopped reporting. No distress call, no debris, no trace of life. Just silence. Within hours, the second cruiser vanished the same way. On every star chart, on every comm channel, the only message left behind was 3 simple words in deep red letters. We are still here. On Tharun, Vial sat in the Academy's communications room, eyes wide as he watched the panic unfold. Alarms sounded through the halls. Officers barked orders. Scan the sector. Send backup. Vial's heart thumped against his rib cage. He remembered the footage he had seen of humans pushing through impossible odds. Could this be another human trick? Or something darker? His instructors dismissed his questions. It is a glitch, they said. Nothing to fear. But the cadet did not believe them. Meanwhile, deep in an abandoned asteroid field, a silent human ship cut through the darkness. Its hull was scarred and worn, but its lights burned bright. Inside, soldiers moved like shadows, faces set in grim determination. They wore black uniforms and carried weapons that glowed with hidden power. Commander Reyes stood at the viewport, watching alien sensors sweep past. They still think we are dead, he whispered. Let them keep guessing. Across the galaxy, reports flooded in. 2 more ships missing near the rim worlds. A colony station dead in its tracks. Power grids shutting down on research outposts. Every system that had once carried an alien mark now bore signs of sabotage. Doors locked from the inside. Turrets turned on their masters. And on every screen, that same chilling phrase, "We are still here." Fear spread faster than any virus. Alien worlds trembled at the thought that the humans had returned, and with unknown weapons. Back on the hidden human vessel, the AI unit Echo flickered to life. Its voice was calm but firm. All sleeper cells report active. Phase 2 begins. Soldiers nodded and dispersed to their stations. In hyperspace lanes far from Tharun, derelict freighters roared to life, engines flaring to full power. Ancient human cruisers, once thought scrap, rose from forgotten docks and fell into formation behind the lead ship. Humanity's ghost fleet had awakened. On the capital world of the Cathari Council, panic erupted in the Senate chambers. Delegates shouted accusations. Why were our scouts cut off? Who is responsible? The High Commander of the Varnak Empire slammed his fist on the holotable. This is no accident. The humans are attacking us. Others shook their heads. But Earth is gone, they cried. The treaty says the war is over. Yet the Sci-Fi holoscreens showed empty corridors on their ships, lights flickering out one by one. It was impossible to ignore. Vial could not sleep. He crept back to the restricted archives and searched for any hint of a human comeback plan. His claws tapped softly on the keyboard as he unearthed old schematics of Earth's defense network. There it was, a hidden project titled Phantom Echo. It described how human AI could infiltrate enemy systems and rise up when least expected. Vial's breath caught in his throat. He remembered the footage of humans refusing to die, of their cunning traps. Now he knew those images had been a warning. In the darkest sector of space, human fighters darted through asteroid fields, picking off Varnak scouts one by one. Laser beams sliced through shields. Explosions bloomed against the black void. No mercy was given, no survivors taken. Behind, each attack was a message. This is what you get for believing we were finished. With every strike, humanity reclaimed a piece of its lost pride and sent a clear warning to the rest of the galaxy. On Tharun, Vial stood before his commanders, his uniform stained with sweat. "Sir," he said, "I have proof the humans never died. They hid, they planned, and now they are hunting us." The officers exchanged uneasy glances. One of them barked, "Get him out of here. He's clearly disturbed." But as Vial was dragged away, alarms blared across the station. Screens showed the fleet of ghost ships emerging from hyperspace, rows upon rows of human warcraft filling the void. Every eye in the command center turned to the holo projection, faces drained of color. In that moment, Vial saw the truth. The war did not end with Earth's fall. It had merely paused, waiting for the right moment to resume. Humanity's ghostly vengeance would sweep through the stars like a storm, and no power in the galaxy, no treaty, no alliance could stop what was coming next. The real war had just begun. Lights flickered across the alien city of Zarlon Prime. It was the largest tech hub in the galaxy, home to millions of scientists, engineers, and strategists. But tonight, something was wrong. Streetlights blinked in strange patterns. Security. Drones crashed without warning. Doors refused to open. Systems that had worked for decades suddenly went dark, and then across every screen 3 words appeared in blood-red letters. Retribution has begun. Panic spread like fire. Military officers shouted over comms. Lock down the core. Shut off outside signals. But it was too late. The virus had already spread. It was inside their systems, deep, hidden, intelligent. No one knew where it had come from. But Vial, now working quietly in the shadows, had a feeling. He had seen the signs in the old files. This wasn't an attack. It was a plan. One built long ago by human minds preparing for revenge. In the command center of the Eye, hidden human fleet Commander Reyes watched with cold eyes. They built their cities using our stolen tech, he said. Let's remind them where it came from. His crew worked fast, sending commands to AI programs buried deep in alien machines. Programs disguised as helpful tools, now turning deadly. One by one, alien defense grids shut down. Weapons refused to fire, shields failed. All across the galaxy, the same pattern repeated. On the planet Durex, power plants overloaded and exploded. On the moon of Yethar, airlocks opened mid-flight. Alien soldiers were thrown into space. And in every system that fell, human signals were found, old, coded, written in simple phrases like, for Earth, for the fallen. We are your reckoning. Back on Tharun, Vial was under house arrest. His warnings had been ignored, but now his commanders were terrified. They asked him questions in shaking voices. How did they do this? How are they inside our systems? Vial gave them a single answer. You used their machines. You stole their code. You never understood it. And now it understands you. The High Alien Alliance called an emergency meeting. Delegates argued across a massive holographic chamber. This is terrorism, one shouted. This is war, said another. We should have wiped them out completely. But the truth was clear. The humans had never been wiped out. They had simply disappeared. And now they had returned, not with ships but with silence, shadows, and machines that could not be stopped. Commander Reyes stood before his crew, hands behind his back. They celebrated our end, he said. They laughed when Earth burned. But they forgot what we are. We are survivors. We are builders, and we never forget. The crew saluted him. Many had lost families, homes, everything. But now, they had purpose. The war was no longer for land or power. It was personal. In one daring mission, human agents disguised as traders entered an alien command post. They carried nothing but old tools and scrap. But once inside, they activated a beacon. Instantly, every system in the post turned against its users. Doors sealed, turrets rotated. Even the floor panels shocked anyone wearing a non-human ID. Minutes later, the entire command post vanished in a fiery blast. Vial watched it all unfold from the Academy's observation deck. He was no longer angry. He was quiet, thoughtful. They're not just fighting back, he whispered. They're teaching us a lesson. His friend, another cadet, asked him what he meant. That if you destroy someone's home, you should. Pray they never learn how to reach yours. The galaxy now lived in fear. Every system was suspect. Every machine was a possible enemy. And at the center of the chaos was a ghost, an idea that refused to die. Humanity had lost its world, but not its will. What began as silence was now a whisper in every shadow. A whisper that said, "We are here. We are watching. And this is only the beginning." As the stars shifted and the darkness grew deeper, the aliens realized something horrifying. This wasn't revenge fueled by rage. It was cold, patient, calculated, the kind of revenge only humans could plan, and the storm was far from over. In the far reaches of space where maps turned blank and signals faded into static, something began to stir. Long-forgotten satellites blinked back to life. Dust-covered stations powered up with quiet hums. And in the graveyard of broken ships beyond the Null Drift, ancient human warships moved. Not many knew they even existed. Ships without names, without flags, abandoned long ago. But they weren't abandoned. They were waiting. Vial sat alone in the Tharun archives, digging deeper into classified human records. Every time he uncovered something, it made less sense. Why would humans leave fully armed war fleets in deep space? Why hide so many ships instead of using them in the war? And then, he found the answer buried under layers of warnings. Project Lazarus. Do not awaken unless Earth falls. His claws trembled on the screen. The fleet wasn't forgotten. It was sleeping. Thousands of kilometers away in the shadows of a dying star, the fleet opened its eyes. Engines warmed. Turrets rotated. AI units whispered to one another in code. The ships were not empty. They held soldiers in cryosleep, drones in stasis, and weapons that had never been tested. At the center of this sleeping army was an old battlecruiser called the Resolve, and standing on its bridge, fully awake, was Commander Reyes. He walked slowly down the hall, nodding at engineers and gunners who had just thawed out. "Status?" he asked. 70% of the fleet is ready, sir," replied his officer. "The rest will follow in 2 hours." Reyes looked out the viewing window. Hundreds of ships floated before him, their lights flickering to life one by one. It looked like a ghost army rising from the dead. "Good," he said. "Let's give the galaxy something to fear again." Back in the alien capital, leaders received the first reports. Entire outposts had gone silent. Sensor scans showed a large force moving through the Null Drift. Too fast, too well organized to be pirates. "Impossible," one general muttered. "There are no fleets out there." But the evidence was clear. Someone had built this armada in secret. Someone had hidden it beyond reach. And now, it was moving toward the heart of the galaxy. Panic spread. The Alien Alliance sent scouts, but they never came back. Every drone was either destroyed or hacked. Some even returned, transmitting human music, old Earth battle cries, or the chilling message, "We remember." Vial stood before the Academy's council again. This time, they listened. "Project Lazarus was real," he said. "The humans planned for this. They hid an entire fleet where you'd never look, and now it's coming." The senior commanders argued among themselves. Some wanted to strike first, others begged for peace talks. But none of them had answers. Back on the Resolve, Reyes paced the command deck. His voice echoed through the fleet. "They thought our silence meant surrender. They thought Earth's ashes were our grave. But this fleet is our voice. And we will speak through fire." The Ghost Fleet moved fast. It didn't take territory, it didn't bomb cities. Instead, it struck supply lines, fuel stations, and communication relays. Every hit was perfect, clean, surgical. It was as if the fleet knew every weak point in the alien systems. And it did. Years of data had been gathered during the war. Now it was being used. On the planet Marion, a major military base went completely dark. No shots were fired. When alien troops entered the ruins, they found every weapon gone, every vehicle missing. Only one thing remained, a small human flag placed in the center of the base with a note. "We're back. The Alien Alliance sent everything they had. New ships, new weapons, elite units." But nothing worked. The Ghost Fleet never stayed long enough for a real fight. It would hit and vanish like lightning from the shadows. And every time it left, it took something with it. Intel, supplies, or prisoners. Vial watched from afar, helpless. "They're not fighting for land," he said quietly. "They're sending a message, we can reach you anywhere." His instructors looked shaken. They had trained for normal wars, ground battles, fleet clashes, politics. But this was something else, something colder, smarter. Human. As the ghost fleet moved closer to the central systems, the fear turned to dread. Every planet asked the same question. What do they want? And slowly a new message appeared in the hacked systems. We want you to remember what you did, and we want you to feel it. The forgotten fleet was no longer forgotten. It was a storm, rising, growing, and guided by vengeance. And every alien world that once celebrated Earth's end now looked to the stars with fear. The real war had returned, and this time humanity had no planet to protect, only a promise to keep. The planet Virex 7 was known as the Fortress of the Alien Alliance. It had never fallen, never been touched by war. Its skies were filled with defense drones, and its orbit was protected by a massive ring of battle stations. The aliens believed it was impenetrable, untouchable, safe. That belief shattered in one night. Without warning, all power on the outer ring failed. Lights went dark, defense turrets froze, ships drifted, helpless. Inside the control tower, officers shouted over each other. "System breach, we're blind." But no alarms had triggered, no ships were seen, only silence, and then a single transmission. "This is where you laughed. Now listen to us weep." From the blackness of space, the ghost fleet emerged. Human. Ships cut through the dark like blades. They didn't fire at first. Instead, they surrounded the entire planet in formation, thousands of ships, moving like one. On the surface, civilians stared up at the sky, mouths open in horror. It looked like the stars themselves had turned against them. Commander Reyes stood tall on the bridge of the Resolve, eyes locked on Virex 7. His voice was calm, yet thunderous. "You toasted the fall of Earth. You cheered while our cities burned. Now you'll learn what it feels like to be powerless." The order was given. Human ships didn't aim at people. They targeted symbols, statues, military museums, old victory monuments, places where the aliens had celebrated humanity's defeat. Each one was reduced to ash. On Tharun, Vale watched the footage in stunned silence. The humans hadn't attacked. Civilians. They had struck memories. He understood now, this wasn't a war for territory. It was a war for truth, and humanity was rewriting history with fire. In Virex's central square, a statue of an alien general crushing a human skull collapsed. In flames. In its place, drones dropped a new monument. A steel fist rising from broken rubble, with words etched in red. "We rise from what you tried to bury," the alien Senate panicked. "Open talks, offer peace, surrender if we must." But it was too late. Every message they sent was intercepted. Every call for peace was met with one reply. "This is not over, this is justice." As fear grew, something worse happened. Alien soldiers began to defect. Secretly, quietly, they joined the humans. Some had lived on Earth before the war. Others had seen too much. Many simply admired the humans' loyalty to their dead. They whispered, "They fight for something we can't kill." Vael sat in a dark hallway, watching grainy footage of an alien commander handing over battle plans to a human scout. Why? Vael whispered to himself. Why would he betray his own kind? The answer came in the form of a note the commander left behind. "I was there when Earth fell. I saw what we did. This is not vengeance, it's balance." Meanwhile, Reyes met with his crew. "They're breaking," he said, "but we're not here to rule, we're not here to conquer. We're here to make them remember." He pointed to the next target on the star map. Tharun, the heart of the Alien Alliance. Their academy trained the soldiers who burned our home. That's where it ends. In the halls of Tharun Academy, the staff scrambled. Evacuations began. Records were deleted, but none of it would matter. The humans were already on their way. And this time they weren't just a fleet. They were a storm of ghosts, carrying the memories of a fallen Earth. Vael knew what was coming. He sat by his window and whispered the words he'd once laughed at. Humanity never dies. The galaxy had mocked the fall of mankind. Now it watched in silence as the ruins of its pride were burned one by one. And deep in the stars, the real message echoed louder than ever. You should have finished the job. The sky above Tharun turned red, not from sunset, from fire. The human fleet had arrived. Tharun, once proud capital of the alien alliance, was now surrounded. Its defenses had been designed by the brightest minds in the galaxy. Layers of energy shields, precision-guided turrets, anti-fleet cannons that could tear ships in half. But none of it mattered. The defenses never activated. Everything was already broken, from the inside. Human infiltrators had walked among them for months. Scientists, traders, slaves, forgotten refugees. No one noticed when they planted viruses in the power cores or hacked into control systems. And when the time came, all it took was one signal from Commander Reyes. With a whisper, the shields died. With a breath, the turrets shut down. Tharun was naked. From orbit, human drop pods rained down like meteors. They weren't here to conquer. They were here to send a message. Reyes had said it himself. Make them feel what we felt. Make them live our last night. Viel stood on the steps of the academy. Sirens blared. Shuttles screamed into the sky. Smoke curled from every corner of the city. And above it all, the human ships hovered in perfect silence, casting long shadows over the towers that once celebrated Earth's destruction. Students ran. Professors hid. Military leaders shouted orders, but nothing worked. Systems glitched. Doors locked, lights flickered, and then the speakers turned on. All across the Tharun, a voice echoed. Soft, human, steady. You watched us fall. You called it justice. You built your pride on our graves. But graves are not always endings. Sometimes they are gates. On the streets, holograms came to life. Images of Earth before the war, green forests, blue oceans, laughing children. Then the same places burning, cities turning to dust, soldiers screaming, civilians crying out. It wasn't a threat. It was a mirror. Viel stared at the flickering images. His chest felt heavy. He had trained his whole life to defend his world from human monsters. But now he saw the truth. The monsters had been them. Human ground forces moved through the city, but not as destroyers. They didn't attack civilians. They didn't take prisoners. They simply walked the same paths the aliens had walked on Earth. Past the same kinds of buildings. The same statues, the same pride. Then they planted flags, not of Earth, but of remembrance. On the academy steps, a human soldier placed a metal plaque. Viel approached, despite the fear pounding in his chest. The soldier didn't raise a weapon, didn't speak, just nodded. Viel read the plaque. Here stood those who trained killers and called them heroes. May this place remember the silence it once caused. He said nothing, because there was nothing left to say. Up above, the resolve hovered quietly. Reyes watched the scene unfold. No orders, no speeches. He didn't need to say anything. His people understood. This wasn't revenge anymore. It was history, being carved into the bones of a proud empire. One of Reyes's officers turned to him. They're broken, she said. The war could end now. Reyes nodded. It could, he said, but they need to understand one more thing. She hesitated. What's that? Reyes looked out at the burning city, his voice barely a whisper. That mercy was always a choice, one they never gave us. As the sun rose over the shattered pride of the galaxy, Tharun lay in ruin, not destroyed by force, but by the weight of truth and fear and memory. The galaxy now understood. Earth had fallen, yes, but humanity? Humanity had simply changed form, not extinct, not defeated, just waiting. And now that they had returned, there would be no going back. Only one part remained. The final message. The final move. And the end that the galaxy had earned. Tharun was quiet. Not the peace of safety, but the silence that comes after a scream. Smoke still curled from broken towers. Ash drifted like snow. The academy, once the heart of alien pride, was now nothing more than blackened stone and scorched dreams. The human fleet hung above the planet like a judgment, motionless, watching. Inside the Resolve, Commander Reyes stood before a giant screen. On it was the galaxy's United Council, leaders from every major species, their faces pale with fear. They had finally agreed to speak, to beg. A Virex ambassador leaned forward, voice shaking. "You've made your point. Please, what do you want? What are your terms?" Reyes didn't smile. He didn't even blink. "I want you to remember." The room went silent. Another alien general growled, "You already burned our capital. You humiliated our fleet. What more do you want from us?" Reyes stepped closer to the screen. "You destroyed Earth. You cheered while our people died. You raised statues to mock our graves. For years we waited in silence, building in the dark. Not to destroy you, but to show you what you truly are." He tapped a control pad. Images flashed across the council's screens. Earth's last moments. Cities consumed by alien fire. Children hiding in rubble. A single old man standing on a ruined street holding a burned flag. Then, silence. "This is what you did," Reyes said coldly. "We don't want your planets. We don't want your riches. We came to give you one thing, memory." Suddenly, every planet in the Alien Alliance, every capital, every colony, every school, received the same signal. A broadcast. It played. No threats, no violence, only stories. Personal recordings from Earth survivors, diaries, last messages. The final goodbyes of mothers, fathers, soldiers, and children. It poured into every screen, every home, every heart. The galaxy couldn't look away. And when the message ended, a new one appeared. Just 5 words. "Never forget what you did." The Alien Council sat speechless. Some wept. Others simply lowered their heads. They had expected war. They had expected revenge. But what they got instead was something worse. Truth. On Tharun, Vile stood in the ruins of the academy. Around him, former cadets helped rebuild the streets. Not for pride, but for penance. No one was forced. No orders were given. They just understood. He looked up at the sky, at the fleet above, and whispered, "This is what victory feels like when it's earned, not taken." Later that day, a final signal echoed from the Resolve. Reyes addressed the entire galaxy. "This is our last message. Earth may be gone, but we are still here. We were broken, but we are not defeated. We will not rule you. We will not stay. But if you ever forget, if you ever try to bury the truth again, we will return, and next time, we won't be this merciful." With that, the fleet turned. One by one, the ghost ships powered down their weapons and vanished into deep space, leaving behind only silence and memory. The war was over, but its lessons were carved into the bones of the stars. Across the galaxy, statues of alien victories were taken down. New ones were raised, not of conquerors, but of unity, of warning, of Earth. They had celebrated humanity's end, but now they finally understood. It was never the end. It was the beginning of something they could never control. The beginning of the age of memory. And the humans? They disappeared into the dark once again, watching, waiting, because now the galaxy remembered them, and that was all they ever wanted. Reason deep research create image.